What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the unusual, author, counselor, TEDx speaker, master's in counseling, author of What's Really Eating You, friend of the show, Renee Jones returns. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last time we talked was way back in July, which was just a couple weeks into my my weight loss journey, and we had a great talk. If loyal listeners, if you haven't heard it, go dig that one up. And I've come a long way since then, and I just wanted to thank you because that talk with you and just kind of going over that helped me a lot in my own journey, realizing that I am an emotional eater and being able to recognize that and not give into it the whole way. So I appreciate that. And I wanted to have you back on to kind of go over some different stuff as I touched on last week too. January is the month of New Year, New Me. Lots of New Year's resolutions. So I thought it would be helpful if you could come on and talk for a while, but I appreciate you coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me, Luke. And you look fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel fantastic. It's crazy. I said this before too, but you know, I really didn't think that this was possible where I'm at right now, you know, and excuse me, it was something where this is more than what I set out to lose. And I'm just at a point where I've never been before, especially as an adult, this weight, you know, so it's uncharted territory for me. And it feels great. You know, I really do feel like a whole different person. And I'm
Your
hoping,
shadow of yourself.
yeah. I think it was like, I've lost it was like 30, almost 37%. So over a third of what I used to be is gone. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. But I wanted to, I hope that this inspires people to get out there and make a change, you know, in their own life. Because you can do it.
Because it can be done. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, because you did it when you were 55.
No,
right?
I was getting ready to turn 50.
Okay, 50. Yeah, that's incredible.
That's 8 years ago, and I'm still, within a normal fluctuation because your weight doesn't stay the same. But yeah, 8 years and I'm still there. It's fantastic.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I kind of wanted to ask about that too. Like, how has your mindset changed from being on that grind to kind of being in more of sustaining it long term? Because that's kind of the transition I'm in right now, where I was really good on the grind. That was where it was easy for me to put in the work and to be strict, you know. But now it's like trying to take the pressure off a little bit and sort of learn how to, you know, live a normal life again.
Well, unfortunately, our culture doesn't do normal very well.
Yeah.
And what we see as normal is probably just a little too indulgent. Right? Yes, it's normal to have a hamburger. Yes, it's normal to have chips and all the rest of it. But what my grandmother knew was how to have those things in moderation. So, when I was losing my weight, I'm only 5'3". So the original plan had me on about 1,200 calories. And that was not very satisfying to me. So the problem is when you go back to being able to eat whatever, we tend to overdo it. Rather than recognizing, okay, so generally, this doesn't apply to everybody, but generally, a pound of flesh is about 3,500 calories, approximately, right? So to lose a pound a week, we always took away about 500 calories a day. That's not a lot when you add it back in. It seems a lot when you take it out, but that's not a lot when you put it back in. So if you want to maintain, You've either got to choose, okay, I'm going to do the calorie thing or specific choices, but to maintain your weight, you don't get a whole lot of extra food. If you went back to eating the way you did before, you would end up in the same place you did.
Right.
So just recognize it's not that much more food that your body actually uses, and be careful about what you add.
Yeah.
What kicks up your cravings, Luke?
Mm.
Because it's harder to fight a craving than it is to stop it before it starts.
Mm. How did you ever have, like, because I think that one thing I'm trying to get past too is sort of in this whole thing is just building a healthier relationship with food overall. But I'm trying to get past, I'm working toward it, but trying to get past like the fear of I always refer to it as like a werewolf. Like if I have, I think I said buffalo wings last time. If I have buffalo wings again, all of a sudden that's like a full moon that comes out, and I'm just going to be right back to where I was, ravishing a village.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the things you can do is make sure if you go there, if you choose to do that, and it's a choice.
mhm,
I mean, you're an adult, you can make choices about your food and your body, but just make sure there are parameters initially. Think of it as training wheels, right? You don't want to completely lose balance. So you don't want to have, 16 portions within your reach. Have whatever is the appropriate portion and make sure that's all there is that's there. Because it's the, oh, this is so good, I just want another one,
mm,
that ends up sending you back and forth to the plate to get more.
yeah, yeah. My health coach now, he talks a lot about Todd, shout out. He talks a lot about the before, during, and after, of everything you do, but especially with eating. Like, have a plan before, during, and after. So what you're gonna do before, if you're gonna drink water, if you're gonna maybe have a little bit, you could put in a little extra exercise or go for a walk or something. And then during, like you said, knowing the portions you're gonna have and knowing the boundaries you're gonna have for yourself. And then after, instead of just going in with no plan, no thought, and then who knows what's going to happen if that craving takes over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And there are some foods that you may decide, this always triggers me. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to, that's the way I am with sugar.
mm,
If I have sugar, I know for 2 days afterwards, I'm going to crave it.
mm.
And it makes me a little mean, right? Jacks with my blood sugar enough. My husband has said, honey, it's the sugar talking. Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be. So I make sure that I only have that somewhere else. It doesn't come into the house.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's always been like pasta for me.
Mm-hmm.
High carb, the really cheesiness, the heavy dairy that just sedates you,
Uh,
and then you'd feel awful for for a few
yeah.
days. So yeah,
And remembering how it makes you feel later.
yeah,
We seem to think it's going to change. We'll get used to it. It'll change. It doesn't change. If your body chemistry is your body chemistry. So if it makes you feel awful, this is why I don't quite understand alcoholics. You're going to feel bad. So
mm,
why do you do that? One drink,
right,
sure. 2 drinks, maybe. More than that, really? Why?
right. Like, we've been down this road before.
Mm,
We know what happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you could use that logic on starting a new exercise program. You're going to be sore.
Mm,
So why would you do that to yourself? Except that that's for your health.
yeah. Yeah.
The soreness will then lead to muscle growth, and that's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. So when you started on your weight loss journey, was that a New Year's resolution for you?
Well, it was the first time, and it was by mid-January I had to start again, and by mid 1st of February I had to start again. It was it was a it was a thing until mid-April when I had to buy a bigger size.
Mm,
And that was like, okay, what I'm doing is not working. I've got to figure out something else. And that's when I started on that journey to find that something else that would work for me.
yeah.
And it didn't really change the diet yet, um, but it changed how I approached it, how um, consistent I was with it, and dealing with all the emotional eating part. Because once I started to deal with the emotional eating aspect, I could stay on the diet because I wasn't looking for food to soothe me. I was
Mhm.
looking at other things to soothe me.
Yeah, that was maybe the biggest thing. I that was right at the forefront of my mind the entire time I was on this and thinking of what we talked about. And it did rear itself, you know, and I'm proud to say that I never broke. You know, I
Well done.
didn't have one time where I gave in. And you know, I never gained a pound. I always lost. And it was it was a good mental exercise, but there were plenty of times. I mean, there were times when it happened all the time, but it was what back in my football playing days, the coaches would always say mental toughness. When you're conditioning and you're running and it's 92 degrees outside and you haven't had a water break and you think you can't go anymore, and then they're yelling at you about mental toughness to push yourself, you know,
Mm,
farther than you can. I mean, there were times where it'd be like, you know, maybe it's like an afternoon and I'm going around trying to get a bunch of stuff done and I'm running late, so I'm like stressed out about that. And then you drive by like a fast food place, you know, and I would
mm,
specific there was one time early on where I could smell it and I really wanted to just go get a cheeseburger, you know, and I could taste the cheeseburger in my mind, you know, in my mouth. I could taste it. And then I just sort of I had that thought where I said, I stepped back and was like, okay, you can taste it right now. You know what that tastes like. So you don't have to go get one. And
mm,
you don't really want that cheeseburger. You're just stressed out because
mhm,
of what you're doing. And
mhm.
right when I took a step back and realized that, the craving went away. That was fun.
Yes. Yes. And very often that'll happen when we have a moment of sanity. We can see what we're doing
Hmm.
and make a choice then. But that is that backing up and thinking, okay, what do I really want? What is it that let's be sensible here. Another little trick, however, is to figure out what it is about the cheeseburger that you love so much. What is it that makes it the perfect cheeseburger or hamburger?
Mm.
I found for myself that was the pickle. So when I get a craving for something like that, I may go have a pickle instead, because that's the thing about it that makes it perfect.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think for me it was me. I think it goes back to childhood, and that was sort of I for whatever reason I would always get a cheeseburger when I was a kid, and I think that it was always like a reward. Like it'd
Mm,
be we would be my parents would have me helping them with something, and then in reward for helping them do that, they're like, we'll go get you a cheeseburger, you know.
oh,
And so so I think it goes back to that. But also it's like,
sure.
well, I can reward myself in other ways. You know,
Hmm.
I told the story on my on the last episode where I recounted my whole journey about a very intense confrontation I had at a family event, and it was tough on me. But one of the things that helped get me through it was I knew that I had my meal prepped at home.
Mm.
Like I knew no matter what happened, I was going to go home and I was just going to have what I had made for myself ready. And I didn't leave it to chance. You know, it wasn't up in the air, and it wasn't like, cuz I think that's also what could have had me fall back into it, is if I didn't have a plan and didn't know what I was going to do. Then when something comes up like that, you can start to spiral and make a poor decision, you know.
Well, but look, if we think about that in terms of anything else, if you don't have a financial plan,
Mm.
or if you don't have a plan for your Saturday, what do you accomplish? If you're just sort of going from moment to moment, okay, I'll play this video game for an hour. Then I want to watch some TV. Well, I better have something to eat. You get through the whole day and you accomplish nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas if you have a plan, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'll do this and this, then you're more likely to get somewhere. So if I don't, I don't quite get how we don't apply that also to nutrition.
Yeah.
If if I don't think about it in advance, nobody in this house eats because they all depend on me to put food for them, including the dog and the cats, right? So if I don't do some planning in advance, they're going to starve or they're going to get whatever I can throw together.
Yeah.
It does help when we make some kind of plan. Or if you don't want to plan, have some things frozen so that all you have to do is pull it out, put it in the microwave, and you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that some of that comes from, um, you know, taking responsibility for your life in every aspect.
What, you mean adulting?
Yeah.
That's boring.
Hashtag adulting for all of us, right? But yeah, I mean, because I think that a lot of people, maybe, you know, I certainly fell into this for a while too, of just, you're just expecting somebody to do it for you, you know, and that comes down to even food. You know, you're just expecting to have it made, or go somewhere where someone will make it for you, and you know, and give it to you, or you know, whatever it is. But when you make that switch in your mind of like, at the end of the day, I'm the one who's going to be here for me, you know, and
Yes.
I have to be the one to take care of me. Then I think that you can start to just take those steps, just all of a sudden come naturally, and they don't feel like chores anymore. It's just something that you do, you know.
Yeah. You're being responsible for your own life
Yeah.
and you get to make the choices.
Yeah. Because I know that, like, with my anxiety, how it would show itself, would be a lot of avoidance, you know, of not wanting to deal with things, and trying to avoid it. You know, it
And
was
how did that work out?
it never did. It never worked out, because like, even when you know, there were times where I wasn't doing so well in a class in school, you know,
Mm.
for instance. And I grew up in a time where we could always check our grades at any time online or whatever. And I never ever wanted to look at my grade when I wasn't doing well in a class. Like, I knew I wasn't doing well, and I just
Mm.
never wanted to look at it, because I just was like, I don't want to know how bad I'm
Mm.
doing.
Mm.
But the thing is, because this had happened in high school, and I don't think I was really high school is a little bit different, because it's a little bit handholdy, you know. They sort of, at least where I went, it was sort of like, if you turn this in, we'll give you full credit, and just like work, you know, whatever. And I had found that I'm I'm a smart guy. I was a smart kid, but I had trouble self-motivating, especially in high school. So it's like, if I didn't like a class, I
Mm.
just wouldn't really put in the effort.
Mm.
And so I would struggle in those classes, was able to get through. But then in college, my first semester, I was really nervous. I thought, how am I going to do this? I'm in college. made the dean's list my first semester and then thought, oh, this is easy, you know, oh, I don't have to try so hard. And then all of a sudden, second semester, it was like, wow, you know, you're like, oh, I don't feel like going to class today. And then all of a sudden I failed 2 or 3 classes
Mm.
and you're like, wow. And all of a sudden now it's different because I have to pay to take these classes again.
Mm.
And why? Because I didn't feel like going to, like, there, you know, there is no excuse.
Mm.
And you're like, there's a shift in your mind where it's like, okay, well, nobody's gonna help me through this. Nobody cares, you know, if I fail this, and I have to be the one to do it. And then you turn it around, and that was when I would force myself to look at my grades, to talk to my teachers, to sit in the front of the class, and then just sort of slowly apply that, you know, to everything else.
Mm. Adulting.
Adulting. Never fun. Yeah. And I realized going through this too, well, what I underestimated, I guess, as far as losing this weight, because I don't think I didn't have like a huge rock bottom moment where I was like, I need to do something about it. You know, it was just something that I think it was just building up for a long time,
Mhm.
and my avoidance, you know, just got to a peak, and I just was like, once I decided to do it, I was all in, and there was no, you know, I had the blinders on, I was going to do it.
Mm.
Um, but what I underestimated was how emotional it's been for me this whole
I bet.
time.
Yeah.
And really, like, I talked about this on the last episode too, but that interaction I had, um, I ended up crying, and that was the first time I cried in 5 years.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, I think that was when I was like, I'm doing something more than just losing weight. You know, that's when it sort of solidified that I think I had over the years just used food and as protection, and just kind of packed on the weight instead of dealing with things and taking responsibility. So the more that time went on, the more those layers, you know, had come off. And yeah, it's been quite a journey for me, for sure.
Well, I think a lot of our emotional stuff is like a bag of rocks.
Mm.
And if you can begin to unpack those rocks and give them away or throw them away, then you're not as heavy in your spirit, but that allows you the freedom to make better choices for yourself because you're not dragging that bag of rocks.
Mm.
And you can take them one by one or several at a time, but the ones that are connected, like family, big bags of rocks around family, right? And just unload them slowly. And then you don't have that thought in the back of your mind about that time when somebody did something that really upset you. And it does make you feel lighter physically as well as emotionally. And we've got to do it. Otherwise, we're continuing to drag the bag of rocks, which is not the most pleasant thing.
No. And I think that I love that metaphor. And I think that people like to, you know, see me and think, wow, how did you unloaded all those rocks? I wish I could unload all these rocks. Almost like, how did you do that all at once? Like, oh, I wish I could wake up tomorrow and my bag of rocks would be almost empty, you know? But it's like, no, it's, you know, one rock at a time, and learning to appreciate each of those rocks as it goes, you know, and not just because they are important, but that's what makes it doesn't happen all at once, you know. There are steps, and so each of those rocks you take off is important, and it should be important to you. You know, I don't think there's a way you can wake up and just all of a sudden your bag is empty, you know.
I, I guess you could, but I don't think it would be a good process for you.
Mm.
I mean, I took a good couple of years working with a coach to unpack all of my baggage. Now, little pieces still kind of creep back in, and I have to say, no, you're not allowed in this. We're done. I threw you away. Well, how did you get back in the house? Right? But I think that's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's part of how we get through. And all of that stuff made us who we are. And part of the adulting is saying, yeah, we don't do that anymore. That we don't chew on plastic blocks anymore, or the railing on our beds like we might have done when we were teething. There are a lot of things that we put away as we grew up, and some things we just kind of hold on to for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah.
But we do. But it doesn't happen overnight generally.
Yeah. So what's your biggest piece of advice for people that are making the commitment this month? You know, the new year 2021 is going to be it. I'm going to finally put in the work. You know, what's your biggest piece of advice for those people?
Well, here's the things about resolutions. In order to follow through with a resolution, you have to resolve the issue driving the behavior you're trying to eliminate. Willpower will only take you so far. It's a finite resource. That's why you could be good all day, and then somebody left an open package of cookies on the countertop and you demolish them because you used up all of your willpower. It's got to be more than that. And we try to barrel through willpower. We just can't do it. So find the issue driving the behavior. The overeating, emotional eating is about trying to stuff down our feelings and follow it with a food chaser. So if you can deal with those emotions, deal with those conflicts, deal with whatever created that behavior for you, you eliminate that, you're done, right? A lot of people feel a lot of shame and guilt over things, and they're not really sure why they feel it. They just do. And very often it comes from parenting, and not intentionally. But I remember standing in my kitchen, and I had made a cheesecake, and my father was visiting for some reason, and I cut a piece of the cheesecake for myself. And he came downstairs and said, shame, shame, shame. And I looked at him like, what? I'm not thin enough already, Father? And then he apologized, but that's behavior he had learned. So he was putting the shame on me, and I didn't deserve it. It was well within my calories for the day. I was thin enough. It was good. But parents often use shame or use guilt. And let's face it, we all do it at different times to get us to change a behavior because it works. But it also leaves the residue of the shame that we can't really identify. So if we deal with that, I mean, I often say, okay, you feel terrible about yourself. Your self-esteem is in the toilet. Did you kill somebody? No. Okay. Did you rob somebody? No. Well, did you cheat somebody out of a boyfriend or girlfriend? I mean, what is it that is so bad that you are beyond redemption? And they're like, well, I don't know. I just feel that way. Why? Let it go. It's not yours. You've taken it from somewhere. You've made the habit of feeling guilty, but you didn't deserve it. It's not actually yours. So really, you're stealing it. Put it back. Finding the things that drive you with behaviors that you don't want anymore is the key to keeping a resolution and staying on track. You had finally decided, nope, not doing this anymore. We're going to make this change. You created a plan. You walked through 7 months of the year losing weight. God bless you. Well done. And you got there. Yeah.
And I think that's that's the hardest part is self-love and
Yeah.
being able to, give yourself grace and to and it's such yeah, I agree. Willpower and shame it only gets you so far, and to be able to go through for the long haul for me was just having to constantly be willing to work on, the things that drove me and being forgiving of myself.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and just
Yeah, and in my program, I have, three prongs to it: your body, your baggage, your best. Figure out what works for your body. We get rid of the baggage, and then we work on your best self. Because Luke, when you're feeling your best, how hard is it to make good choices about your food and intake?
it's I don't think twice about it.
Exactly. So just like you were talking about stepping back from the cheeseburger, you were getting into your best self. And then you could make a good choice.
Mm,
I mean, if we will continually choose from our best rather than from, a bad day or a difficult relationship, then we're more likely to do what works for us in the end. And then we don't have any guilt or shame.
right. Yeah. Powerful stuff. That's a tough start, but I mean, I also have always thought of this as a lifelong thing too, and not and never thought of it as a temporary thing. So I'm excited to learn how to be able to sustain it and to get back to less of a grind, and more of just a normal life, but knowing that it's it's not just gonna I can't just stop. It's not like my problems are just gonna go away just because I've hit this goal.
So I have a question for you.
Yep.
Why does it have to be a grind?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because the more you think of it as a grind, the less likely you are to feel good about it. And
Yeah.
it just perpetuates, because when we see something as a grind, it's like going to class. I don't want to do that.
Mm,
But it's part of what gets you to where you want to be, the degree.
hmm
So if we can shift our thinking around some of those things and not label them with this is a grind, this is a grind, it's a choice for the goal that you want. I mean, you work to have money to put gasoline in your car to go see your friends, right? Or anything else. You work in order to pay the mortgage so you can keep your house. We have all sorts of building blocks for the life that we want. Making good choices around food doesn't have to be a grind. It's just, these are just the choices you make because of the result you want.
yeah,
So I'd encourage you to change the language around
I will. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that I always thought of it as a grind, maybe in an unhealthy way of I think I probably thought I deserved to be ground down
that.
after,
Oh.
years of packing it on. I think I thought I deserved to go through and be hard on myself. But it's been I've been trying to change that mindset, and I think that really after the last month or so of surpassing my initial goal, and then all of a sudden realizing like, wow, I'm farther than I ever thought I could be. It was sort of a different like, what's it all about, and more of a yeah, getting enjoyment out of it and learning to love your life and build the life that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and not be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, because you don't really deserve that kind of grinding down. Okay, so you may have made some choices that might have been a little greedy at times, but you were enjoying the food so much that you were in some ways honoring it by wanting more.
Hmm.
Now you want to honor your body by giving it what it needs, but not being quite so greedy about it. Right? It is part of growing up, again, hashtag adulting, to choose what helps your body perform at its best. And if you honor the food, that sounds a little woo-woo, but I mean, if you actually honor the food and respect it, then you don't overdo it. Just like you don't drive your car at 150 miles an hour because it's bad for the engine. You don't put cheap fuel in because it doesn't work for the engine. I tell you, one of the things that I tell people when they have a craving is, okay, if you really want it, that's fine. But here's how you do it. You put it on a plate and you use utensils. You don't just eat over the trash can or garbage disposal, right? You sit down at your table, you put like a placemat, glass, all those things, make it pretty, and you sit down and actually enjoy the food. Because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point? If you're hiding it, you're going to feel guilty. How do you think your digestion's going to go? But if you actually sit down and enjoy the food, it goes further. I remember my grandmother made wonderful pies. She was very good at chocolate cream pie and a coconut cream pie. Mm-hmm. And, I would eat it so fast that I'd want another piece because I didn't pay attention to the first one. Mm-hmm. And if I would actually sit down and enjoy every bite of that creamy goodness, I didn't need another one. And you can have it. We're done. Thank you. And go on.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, getting rid of that, indulgent lifestyle. And just being more efficient, I guess. But and that's something I thought of that when I went through Christmases, where I had family Christmas, and it was they had made the brisket and cheesy potatoes and all the things that I loved. And I thought of you. I brought a vegetable tray so that I could have my vegetables there, for sure. But I just had a little bit of the brisket, a little bit of the potatoes, and really thought of you, but made sure that I took my time and really tasted every flavor in it, and really savored it. And that helped a lot.
Yeah. Brisket's good.
It is really good. Yeah. You probably have a lot better brisket than I do down.
We do have good brisket. Yeah.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And you've been a big help to me personally through this. And I know that there's probably lots of other people that would say the same thing, that have worked with you before. So for anybody listening that would want to learn more, be able to reach out to you, where can they find you out there?
PackYourOwnBag.com, and Facebook, Instagram, it's all Pack Your Own Bag.
Perfect. Okay, great. And as always, loyal listeners, you can find me on Twitter at LukeLarson89. Find this podcast at L Squared Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook at L2 Podcast. Check us out. We're on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Give us a like and a follow. And once again, Renee, thank you so much for coming on the show. Until next time.